We are taking a closer look at the so-called border surge that could be a turning point in the battle over immigration reform. While the Senate works on a bill providing a pathway to citizenship for millions of people living illegally in the U.S., there is also a deal to stop more undocumented immigrants from coming into the country. The plan includes doubling the number of Border Patrol agents to almost 40,000, building 700 miles of new border fencing, and adding more drones, cameras, and ground sensors. Tennessee Republican Bob Corker is leading the negotiations.
I do think the American people have asked us, if we pass an immigration bill off the Senate floor, to do everything that we can to ensure that we have secured the border. That's what people in Tennessee have asked for. That's what people in North Dakota have asked for. That's what people in Arizona have asked for.
Joining us now is Caroline Horn, CBS News Senior Producer for Politics. Caroline, good morning.
Good morning, Anne-Marie.
So let's talk about this border surge. Why is this amendment so important when it comes to immigration reform moving forward?
Well, this amendment is all about getting more Republicans to vote for the bill. Many Republicans have been on the fence about whether they would support the legislation, and one of the reasons was they said that the border had to be secure before they could even think about supporting a pathway to citizenship. The senators who were trying to push through this legislation really want to have upwards of 70 votes for the bill when it passes the Senate, because they believe that will put further pressure on the House of Representatives to take action on their own bill. So this amendment, this border surge, is an effort to get more Republicans to say yes to the overall package.
And so is it a sign that immigration could move forward? Are the Democrats on board with this as well?
They seem to be, and I would certainly say in the Senate, the chances for this bill to pass are looking quite good at the moment. Senator Harry Reid has said he wants this bill to come to a vote before the Senate heads out on their July 4th recess. Even if it passes the Senate, though, things then become a little bit more murky, because over on the House side, House Republicans are not in line yet with the idea of a path to citizenship, and they have instead taken a more piecemeal approach to immigration reform, and the House Judiciary Committee is passing bills one at a time to take on different aspects of immigration reform.
And what about the White House? How is the White House reacting to this amendment?
Well, for the most part, the White House this entire time has actually stayed out of the back and forth on the negotiations over the immigration reform legislation. They've instead preferred to let Congress kind of hash out the negotiations on their own. That's largely because they believe that Republicans will have an easier time supporting a bill that is not seen as Obama's bill. That said, yesterday, Vice President Biden had events and speeches before two audiences made up of Hispanic leaders and activists, and he pushed again for speedy passage of immigration reform.
Now, one of the people that have been being watched very closely when it comes to this debate is Marco Rubio. Of course, there's been a lot of sort of whispering about whether or not he's going to run for president in 2016, but he's kind of in a dicey situation when it comes to immigration reform. How is he kind of maneuvering this debate?
Well, he's definitely walking a tightrope, as is any Republican who's thinking about running for president and who supports comprehensive immigration reform. On the one hand, many Republicans believe that the party has to do a better job of reaching out to Hispanic voters if they want to have a chance in 2016, and immigration reform is one way to do that. On the other hand, the base of the party, as we saw on Wednesday when there was a Tea Party rally on Capitol Hill against immigration reform, the base of the party is still not necessarily on board with this bill. And I spoke with one activist in Iowa, that crucial early voting state of Iowa, who said that Rubio's chances were basically devastated by his support of this immigration bill, and that he shouldn't even bother showing up there because the base of the party are the ones that turn out on Iowa caucus night, and they're anti-immigration.
Wow. So let's talk about moving forward. You mentioned, there's debate in the House as well. What's next for this bill and immigration reform as a whole?
Well, as I said, the Senate wants to take a vote on the final passage of their bill by the July 4th recess. Speaker Boehner on the House side has said this week that he would like to see action in the House by the end of the summer, and then perhaps a final bill reconciled between the two houses, the House and the Senate, by the end of the year. But as I said, it gets much more dicey once we head over to the House side, because House Republicans are simply not in agreement about just how far they're willing to go.
And there's talk about them wanting to wrap this whole thing up by the end of the summer. Fingers crossed. We'll see if that happens. Caroline Horn, CBS News Senior Producer for Politics. Thank you, Caroline.
Thanks, Anne Marie.